We recording? Let me just put this camera up a little bit. Sorry. Hello and welcome back to the premier NFL show in the UK. That is my opinion, maybe not the opinion of others, but it's my opinion counts more than others, guys, isn't that right? But Hurdle the Line, welcome back. I'm glad to be back. Had a nice week off from holiday. Back with the boys to talk some NFL, talk some NFL draft still, because we can keep talking about the draft, even though it's a week out from the draft. Because, in my opinion, and again, as I just said, my opinion counts quite a lot, as everyone knows. I think it's the biggest event of the NFL calendar. Tom might argue that it's this thing called the Super Bowl that his team's played in a couple of times or something. Me and Batch wouldn't know anything about that. Our biggest event has always been the NFL draft every year, and that's why I believe we can keep squeezing some juice out of this lemon for at least a couple more weeks. So we are going to talk some more NFL draft today. But before we get into any of that, Tom, Batch, my co-host, how are you both?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I am very well, thank you very much.
Nice
Tom,
chilled
yourself?
bank holiday.
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, glad to hear you had a restful holiday in Spain.
Yeah,
So yeah, not
suppose
to
you can
reveal
call.
your location, your actual location of where it
I
was, but
suppose you can
it
call.
was somewhere in that country, basically.
Yeah, it was somewhere in Spain, and I suppose we can call quadruple rum and cokes all day
Yeah.
to be relaxing, but it certainly was relaxing for me. But as I said, we are going to talk some draft. But before we get into that as well, we do have some news that I believe my wonderful co-host Batch is going to lay out for us. So, Batch, what is the news this week,
News
please?
from around the NFL this week. Firstly, Steelers have signed Aaron Rodgers to a UFA tender, which will give him a 10% raise on last year's salary, meaning he'll get $15 million, but will only be able to sign once training camp starts. Very clever of him and them, because obviously um, that means that he doesn't have to do any of the mandatory stuff. Ollie, just one more. Can you just remind everyone of the socials?
Yeah, I can do that after the news, mate. You can carry on with the news.
Yeah, all right then. So next up, we've got ex Brown Martin Emerson Jr. signed for the Saints on Tuesday for a 1 year, $1.15 million deal, $650,000 guaranteed, and 300,000 signing bonus. Personally, I think they've got a good player if he can stay injury free. What do you think, Cole?
So I'm so sorry. We're still on Aaron Rodgers. I was just
No, no,
sorting
no.
out.
Talk
No,
about
no,
Martin
Emerson.
Emerson.
Martin Emerson, yeah. So Martin Emerson, I mean, yeah, I
Going
mean,
to the
obviously felt bad for him how he obviously situation left the Cleveland Browns. Obviously with the injury, the Achilles injury, and then obviously the Browns trading Greg Newsome, who I think Batch, you probably agree they were going to get rid of regardless of if they traded him or not, and obviously managing to bring in Tyson Campbell, who you know you can argue if you want, who's a better player between Emerson and Tyson Campbell. They clearly view Tyson Campbell, healthy version of him, as the better
We saw
player
he was
now.
better last season anyway.
Yeah. I mean, oh, don't get me wrong. We don't have to argue about whether he was better than Red Newsom. We know the answer to that. But in terms of whether he's better than Martin Emerson, obviously, I mean, I would tend to agree. Obviously, as good as Martin Emerson was, but obviously, viewing, especially him being healthy, not coming off of an Achilles injury, plays obviously a factor into that as well. So yeah, obviously, hopefully, he can go and after the injury, earn himself another deal after this 1 year prove it deal, and earn himself a little bit more money in the NFL. Because obviously, appreciate his time here.
Yeah, moving on. So Eagles assistant GM Alec Halaby has announced he's stepping away from the Eagles after 17 years, which is quite a long tenure at that club. The Jets hosted Russell Wilson for a workout this week. Bo Nix had a cleanup on his ankle after his surgery, but they still reckon he'll be fine for preseason. Texans re-signed Al Shair to a 3 year deal. Chargers are hosting one of my favorite tight ends, David Njoku. They've been hosted him today. And then the Ravens have signed three quarterbacks. They've signed Pavia, undrafted free agent, for 3 years. Signed Joe Fagnano, formerly of UConn, to a 3-year deal. And Skylar Thompson, making it 5 quarterbacks going into camp, which seems like what the Browns did last year.
That's literally what I said as well to start the well, when we were talking before we started recording, I was like, it seems like the Browns strategy last year, where obviously they got rid of, well, they traded Pickett, didn't they, right, to the Raiders? But was that before training camp, right?
Yeah, during, I believe.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
during. Yeah, but either way,
He got injured.
yeah, there's no way that the Ravens are going to carry 5 quarterbacks into the season when
No.
they got Lamar Jackson, they got Tyler Huntley. I think he's under contract as well. So one of those guys will be on the roster as QB3. But other than that, yeah.
And then the last one is Green Bay have got a new number 2 quarterback. Tyrod Taylor has now signed for Green Bay Packers, which a good backup, proved for the Jets he can do the backup's job. What do you think? Good signing, bad signing?
Well, they lost Malik Willis. Obviously, it's a downgrade of Malik Willis in terms of a backup, but Tyrod Taylor has been around the block, so
can do a job.
What else do you ask for? I suppose for a.
I mean, he's I swear he's like a 10-year vet now, or something. No, maybe longer than that, to be honest.
And also, just to clarify on the Aaron Rodgers one, because like it was framed as if like he's now signed with he's not signed with the Steelers. It's just that they've tenured it, which means that I can't even remember what it means, but another team basically can't sign him until after training camp. I think if they wanted to sign him,
like the Steelers would match what another team is gonna pay or something.
Something like that. But I mean, Aaron Rodgers was literally pictured yesterday wearing a Jets hoodie, so he just continues to play the Aaron Rodgers game. So it's not a foregone conclusion that he will.
Oh no.
Will obviously be back with the Steelers, but we'll obviously see how it pans out.
Tom, going back to your point on Tyrod Taylor, 15-year vet.
15-year, yeah, because he started at a few different spots. He started for the Bills. He's been really unlucky with injuries as well, because when he's been on the field, he's actually not a bad player, but he's been lung like twice or something.
He's been unlucky with injuries, but the rookies that usually sit behind him have been quite lucky with injuries. Obviously, Baker Mayfield in Cleveland came in to make his debut when Tyrod Taylor got injured and then went on to break the rookie touchdown record. Justin Herbert, he came in after Tyrod Taylor got injured and then he went on to break the rookie record. So, if you are a rookie sat behind Tyrod Taylor when he gets hurt, then it seems to be a blessing for those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got a ring, though. You can't complain at that.
Does he?
With who? The Bucks?
Super Bowl 9. Ravens.
Oh, with the Ravens?
Oh no, sorry, he didn't get a ring. He lost at the Super Bowl to the.
I was going to say I didn't.
I was going to say I don't think. I haven't seen things of Tyrod Taylor Super Bowl winning QB.
So. No, apparently he is. Apparently
he
is Super Bowl champion.
With what team?
for the Ravens in 2013.
Oh wow! So he's been around that long. Fair play.
He must have been on the roster.
That's great.
Yeah, he was drafted in 2011.
Did he throw a? Did he? I forgot he was drafted by the Ravens. Let's take your bets. Did he? How many yards did he throw for in that year? What do you reckon? In 2013, do you think he threw a single pass?
Yes.
I'm gonna say he threw like 3 passes.
So 2013, he threw 5 passes.
Oh,
completed 1 pass.
Yeah,
for 2 yards, and it was picked.
Oh wow.
But he did run a bit that season, didn't he? I was just reading.
He didn't play a single snap in the playoffs that year.
Wow. Yes, it was all just Joe Flacco. Yeah, fair play.
But a ring is a ring.
A ring's a ring. Brings
He
a ring.
scrambled for 66 yards and 15 carries.
Nice.
Nice.
Couple of Wildcats. I'm gonna guess.
Yeah.
Like Taylor Green this season.
Wildcat. Telling Dream's gonna be starting, hopefully. But we'll get into that because, as I said, we are here to talk about the NFL draft. And I wasn't here last week when the lads gave their winners and losers of the NFL draft. If you haven't checked that out, please do go check that out. And also, please, when we're talking about checking out, check out the links in the description, in the bio of this video, to see where you can follow my amazing co hosts, as well as obviously all the other podcasts under the AAW network and obviously the network itself on the socials, and come and interact with us over there. But as I said, the NFL draft, you guys spoke about the winners and the losers last week. We are going to do a little bit more of a dive. As I said at the start, my opinion matters more. Obviously, me not being there means that obviously we all need to hear my opinion, guys. So no, we are going to just give some more takeaways. As I said, give a little bit more into this. And before we do that, I just want to take you guys back to what are we talking about now? Thursday night.
Hmm.
I'm of course very tired at this point. I said to Tom, I'm going to try and get 6 hours sleep before the draft, as obviously I was going to have to stay up all night and then go straight to the airport. I managed to get about 2 hours sleep.
Ooh.
So not too bad, but obviously not great. But the draft starts. We all knew what the first pick was going to be. Fernando Mendoza, no surprise there. Jets go on the clock. That's when the draft actually starts. And then we
Hmm.
had David Bailey go off the board, which, each to their own. If you were someone like me, you'd have gone with Arvell Reese there. But I obviously understand with them going David Bailey. Did they get kind of jinxed into doing this by some other teams? We had some reports that there were other teams ringing them up and saying we want to trade up to 2 and we want to trade up for David Bailey. Maybe they were doing that, trying to get them to pick David Bailey. Because as I said, it is the higher floor pick. But if you're someone like me, I'd have probably gone with a little bit more sexier, more exciting pick in an Arvell Reese. But they ended up going David Bailey. The Cardinals then come up at 3. And I don't know about you guys, but I did not expect them to make this pick.
No.
I was sat there going, just, well, who's coming up then? Is it going to be Dallas? Is it going to be the Chiefs? Who is coming up? And then it says that they've made the pick, and you're okay. And at this point, you know this because the broadcast is actually somewhat in line with what is going on in real life with these actual picks. Because as we all know, these picks are actually being made before it's obviously being announced on the broadcast.
Hmm.
And the broadcast is still somewhat up to it at this point. I have ruined quite a few of these picks in our group chat, Tom, didn't I? Obviously being quite ahead of you guys.
Being ahead of us,
Um,
yeah, for sure.
so, and then it came, as I said, so it came up saying they've made the pick. I then obviously checked Twitter, etc., and they ended up doing it. We both discussed this, Tom, me and you, whether or not they would do it. They did do it, and as I said, you guys spoke about winners, losers last week. I'm not sure if you spoke about the Cardinals as a loser or a winner, but the actual pick of taking Jeremiah Love here at 3, in my opinion, is just malpractice. When your roster is as bad as the Cardinals roster is, and you take a running back at 3, who now has the largest contract of any running back in the NFL before he's even played a snap in the NFL, is just, as I said, malpractice, and will probably get everyone there fired within the next 2 years. Will he be good this year? Maybe. I mean, their offensive line's not terrible. Don't get me wrong. But well, yeah, when your roster is as bad as it is, taking a running back here, in my opinion, this is awful. Do you guys have any objections to that, or do you agree with my opinion on that?
They've already got running backs. They've got a couple running backs already. They were desperate for defense. I don't get why they've done it.
No, I mean, I agree with you, Ollie. I said it last week as well that I just think taking anyone at 3, I mean, taking a running back at 3, I don't care if the generational running back or whatever, taking a running back at 3 is just not good franchise stability, is it really? Like you want to build from, the trenches. And as you said, the Cardinals are not going to be a good team this year. I mean, they've got Jacoby Brissett as their starter, right?
Yeah.
And then running back wise, so why do you sign who did they sign? Tyler Algier, right? Who looked like he was going to get an opportunity, and then Who else do they have? I think they've got loads of running backs, to be fair. They've got Bam Knight, they've got James Conner coming back. And I understand
Democado.
Jeremiah Love is a different type of player, but at the same time, you had more pressing needs. Especially, yeah, defense. As you said, that O-line's not bad, but then it's also they need someone next to Paris Johnson as well. So, they could have gone a multitude of different ways, and for them to go running back just kind of signifies where they are as a franchise to me.
I mean, they
Well,
didn't even go. Sorry, Batch, you go ahead.
you were talking about Jacoby. Pre-draft, the GM wouldn't even commit that Kobe was the starter. And
Mm,
didn't they also draft Carson Beck?
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I was just going to say. I mean, they didn't even. You both say about defense. They didn't even pick a defensive player until the fourth round. Is it
Mm,
104?
yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the Chase Pesontis pick. Obviously I think that is a good pick at 34, but into that interior offensive line that is much big need for them. And as I said, that their offensive line's not terrible. They got Paris Johnson, a couple of tackles that you feel okay with, but obviously the interior was streaming out. Carson Beck at 65. I mean, that's just hilarious to me. That's just a
Mm,
terrible pick. Carson Beck, I don't think is an NFL quarterback. Doesn't have any traits that would make him an NFL quarterback. So to take him at 65 is similar to the Browns taking Dylan Gabriel at what 80 something last season, but even worse in my opinion. Um, but I suppose they have no. I mean, what if you weren't even to commit to Jacoby Brissett, then you had to draft a
mm,
quarterback, and the whole idea of them coming back into the first for Ty Simpson, maybe that was on their radar, but obviously never got to that with him going at 13, which we will get into, I suppose. But yeah, going number three, running back here is just yeah. I mean, I was there like wow, okay, at least they've not at least at least he's gone, and the Browns can't be dumb enough to make that decision and take a running back at six, let alone at three.
I would be
Um,
surprised if Monty Ossenfort is the GM in 2 years' time,
hmm.
is what I'd
Yeah,
say.
this is the kind of pick that as we said, gets GMs fired. Then the Titans come on the board at four, and this was one of the teams that was they were getting mocked to Jeremiah Love a lot.
Mm,
So I think some people were thinking, well, what are the Titans going to do here? And wow, they took Carnell Tate at number four, and this was a
mm,
big shock to me.
yeah.
I Batch would know I've been arguing with Browns fans all year about that I didn't think that Carnell Tate was a top five pick at wide receiver. Um, Obviously very happy for Carnell Tate. Obviously as a Buckeye, obviously get drafted fourth overall. Get a much bigger payday, get a much bigger contract than you would obviously getting drafted a little bit later. So obviously I'm really happy for him. But yeah, this was a big shocker for me. It did, but again, I'm sat here going, well, I don't think the Browns should draft this guy at six. Are they
Mm,
interested in doing it? I don't know. At least now he's off the board, so I don't have to find out in one way or another. So don't get me wrong, I was shocked, but I'm also sat there going, this draft could not have done any better so far for the Cleveland Browns in
mm,
terms of the first four players that have come off the board. You've still got Arbel Reese on the board. You've still got Sonny Styles on the board. At this point, one of those is guaranteed to get to you. Still got Jordan Tyson on the board. You've still got Mansour Delane, Caleb Downs, guys that maybe the Chiefs would be interested in coming up for. So
mm,
at this point, I'm sat there going, I might be tired, but I'm going, wow, this is amazing. This could not have gone any better for the Browns so far.
mm,
Then we get to five, and the Giants do what they should do and just take Arvell Reese there. I mean, should they have taken Stoney Styles? Maybe we can argue
mm.
that here and there. I mean, do you think they should have taken Arvell Reese or Sonny Styles? Do you think Arvell Reese was right?
I don't know.
I do. I
Yeah,
think I
it's a.
think it was a good pick for them.
I'm not
You can
sure.
argue with the pass rush that they already have.
That's what I'm saying.
It's
I don't know if
maybe
it was one that they really needed, like with all the players they've already got Brian Burns. Obviously, I know they lost Dexter Lawrence, but they got Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, who looks like the guy on the outside looking in.
yeah,
But then you've
Abdul
also
Carter.
got Carter from last year as well. Um, and you and then do you really need? And I know the upside of Arvel Reese is through the roof, so I understand why they did the pick. But at the same time, I I think linebacker was a glaring need for them as well. So I was
I
surprised
mean,
they didn't go Sonny Styles, but
yeah, I mean, maybe the plan is that they do,
but then they can play him at linebacker.
I
So
was going to say,
yeah.
we're all projecting our theories, and obviously when we're talking about the Jets, we are
Mm.
talking about the pass rush
Yeah.
upside, about doing that at number two. Maybe the Giants think, well, he's still a really really good on ball linebacker, so maybe we can do that early on, and we can develop the pass rush as well, and then we just have a higher upside there with the pass rush than obviously we would with a Sonny Styles. But as I said, obviously he goes off the board, and the Browns are sat here at 6. Sonny Styles is on the board. Mansour Delane's on the board. Jordan Tyson's on the board. Obviously, the tackles that I want are on the board. None of the
Mm.
tackles have gone yet. So I'm sat here going, this is dream world for the Browns. And I'm sat there going, right, well, Chiefs, Cowboys, come on down. And I even messaged in our group chat, Tom, saying, Chiefs, come on down. And what happens? The Chiefs ended
They
up
did
coming
come on
down.
down.
They came on down, and everyone thought maybe that if the Browns traded back from 6 to maybe 12 or something, everyone thought, could you get a pick next year, a first round pick from next year? I never thought they were ever going to get a first round pick next year, because I just didn't think anyone was giving up future first round picks in 2027 for this draft. So to be able to get the third and the fifth, drop back 3 spots, obviously the way that they're thinking there is, we know who the Chiefs are coming up for. They're telling us who they're coming up for. We trust they're not lying to us. They're saying they
Yeah.
want to come up for Mansour Delane, so we believe them. We look at Washington. We don't believe that they're going to take one of our tackles. Maybe they take our wide receiver, but they're definitely not taking one of our tackles. Then you get to the Saints. They're definitely not taking one of our tackles. Maybe they take our wide receiver, which they ended up doing, but they're not taking one of our tackles. So for the Browns to drop back 3 spots, get the guy that they would have probably picked at 6, and pick up a third and a fifth is obviously great for the Browns. And obviously what they were able to then turn that third into, they don't get Emmanuel McNeil-Warren if they don't pick up that third round pick from the Chiefs that they used to trade up to go and get him. So, it's not just, they get that pick. It's then obviously they can use that with the ammo that pick essentially results in Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. So great for the Browns, great for the Chiefs as well. Don't get me wrong, to just give up a third and a fifth, go up, get your guy. I was a little bit, don't get me wrong, I said this to you, Tom. They must have clearly thought that the Commanders would or the Saints were going to take him, or that someone was going to come up for him, because I you didn't really see him getting mocked to the Commanders or the Saints. Maybe the consensus didn't think that, so maybe that's why it was a little bit surprising. Say, well, why did the Chiefs come up for him? He probably maybe would have been
Brett
there at
Veach
9.
definitely thought that though. So maybe
But this is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
the Chiefs clearly had intel that he was going to go before 9, and that's why they were willing
especially
to do
because
that.
I was listening to Brett Veach talk about it, and he said that both the Saints and the Chiefs lost their top 2 corners. Like obviously the Saints lost them over the last couple of years because they lost Alontae Taylor, and who was the other one that they lost? Was it Paulson Adebo as well? They lost to the Giants.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with my video.
I was going to say I can hear you, but I can't. You've stopped. But
let me.
But yeah, obviously, Chiefs come up, get their guy. Browns go back 3 spots, pick up a third and a fifth, still get their guy, and that kind of that plays into the really cool kind of videos we've got back from this this kind of little documentary thing that the NFL has released. The pitch is in. Where they've kind of shown that insight from inside some of the draft rooms, and we got to see inside the Browns draft room when the Chiefs were making this call. We got to see inside the Browns draft room when the Dallas tried to come up to 9. Obviously, when they got back to there.
That's what I was going to ask about. What you thought of the Dallas video, or the video of the Dallas making the offer, which
so great content overall, and as I said, it starts with the Chiefs one. You get the idea. We now know who the 3, we speculated it. I speculated that these were the people that I thought that the Browns would be targeting, but we pretty much got it confirmed that it was Jordan Tyson, Spencer Fanu, and Francis Mauanoa. They were the 3 guys that the Browns had kind of circled as their guys at 6. And that's kind of, as I just explained there, they knew that one of them was going to be at 9, and not just one of them. They probably knew that both the tackles were going to be there at 9. That obviously ended up being the case. But yeah, as you said, and then obviously for Dallas to ring up when we got to 9 and say, well, would you take 12 and 20 for 9 and 24, which is just a hilarious offer
And the
anyway.
fifth as well, I think.
I mean, it was originally just a straight up swap, which is hilarious. And they kind of framed it as, ring us if you want the out when you are there at 9. And then obviously, yeah, as you said, for them to then ring the final offer and say, well, we'll throw in a fifth. And it was just funny to watch it. And, the way that the difference between the Dallas's war room versus the Browns war room does make you laugh, where it looks like in the Dallas's war room, they're just winging it. And they're just like, oh, yeah. And it also is just funny that, they think that the Browns are dumb and that they're going to just take that. And, it was just the way that he said, oh, well, will a fifth do it? And it was just like, really, like, we've just traded back 3 spots from 6 to 9 and got a 3rd round pick. And now you're asking for that, but oh, you think a fifth is going to do it. It was quite funny, and obviously good for the Browns to not take that, because as I said, a big part of what you factor into this trade backs is not just what you're getting, but it's also whether or not the players that you're targeting are going to be on the board. As I said, when you're going back from 6 to 9, like they did with the Chiefs, they identified that the players that they, as I said, that they were circling would be on the board. You then factor that trade with the Dallas Cowboys. They probably wouldn't take that trade even if they thought they would be on the board, just because it was an hilarious trade offer, just a terrible trade offer. But as I said, they didn't think that they would, because Dallas comes up to 9. Okay, they draft Caleb Downs. Giants drafted Francis Mauigoa at 10 anyway, so they're drafting Francis Mauigoa or Spencer Fanu at 10. That was one of your guys. Who did obviously Miami ended up picking at 12, because obviously they ended up doing the trade with Dallas. They were originally at 11, so they would have been ahead of you. They took Caden Proctor, so they would have taken Mauigoa or Fanu. So if the Browns did take that offer and they dropped back to 12, all 3 of their guys that I said that they circled would have been off the board in Jordan Tyson, Spencer Fanu, and Francis Mauigoa. So obviously good for the Browns to do that. And
the Browns.
Yeah, and I suppose we'll take this moment back while Tom's just quickly sorting out his computer issues. To as we said, I wasn't here last week, so I will do my little quick thing on the Browns and obviously their draft overall, and the quick takeaway from that. Because don't get me wrong, it's not just because I'm a Browns fan, and obviously Batch is a Browns fan as well. This is obviously a draft that has been dubbed by a lot of draft experts and a lot of analysts and people as one of the better drafts and one of the winners for the draft. And, I just have to go as far as to say that I agree with that, and shocked, obviously, the Browns fan agreeing with the national media giving them a good grade for their draft. But I just think objectively it was a very good draft from the Browns, not just in terms of the players that they got, but in terms of how they worked the board, as we just kind of discussed their Batch, with in terms of that trade back from 6 to 9, knowing that your guy was still going to be there, being smart enough to know that if you then dropped that back from 9 to 12 with the Cowboys, your guys weren't going to be there, and that was proven by, as I said, Francis Mauigoa going at 10, and the Cowboys and the Dolphins taking Caden Proctor. They would have taken Fanu there instead of Proctor. So that just goes to show that the Browns, the draft isn't just about picking players, and this kind of gets missed a lot. And some teams are good at picking players when they're on the board. They do their research. They have good scouts. They're good at whenever we're on the board. Okay, we pick our players, and we're fairly good at that. We have a fairly good success rate. But it's not just doing that. It's also about how intelligent you are working the board, how intelligent you are doing your pre-draft prep, knowing what other teams are going to do, which the Browns did clearly, because that's why they're not willing to drop back another 3 spots, knowing that those tackles would go. So just the whole combination of the Browns players that they got, and obviously how they moved around the board. I mean, only 3 2027 picks that were 4th round or higher got traded on draft night, which is quite insane to think about. 2 of those went to the Browns. So, they didn't just come away with these great players. They didn't just come away with 4 players that were in the top 32 consensus boards. Within their first 4 picks, 2 of those being in the second round. But they also came away with 2 fourth-round picks in 2027 in a loaded draft that gives them ammo. That if you do want to obviously go up for quarterback, that's more ammo in the bank there. So just everything in what the Browns did in terms of the players they picked. And obviously what they did in terms of moving around the board was just excellent, in my opinion. And to get those first 4 players, I mean, KC Conception was one of my favorite human beings in the draft. So to get him at 24, I mean, you probably saw it, Batch. I tweeted out, I think after pick like 12, saying, go and get me KC Conception. They went and got me KC Conception. Denzel Boston then at 39. I mean, we were sat here, Tom, having conversations about would he be there at 29, and then, we were able to get him at.
He went all the way to 39, yeah,
and
crazy.
We were able to get him at 39, and then to obviously come up for Emmanuel McNeil-Warren with that 3rd-round pick that you got from the trade back to still then get Spencer Fanu, who, don't get me wrong, I mean, every clip that I've seen of Spencer Fanu since he was drafted makes me fall more and more in love with him. But
he's a beast, isn't he?
Yeah, but that's, as I said, we just wanted to, while you were figuring out your computer issues, Tom, I thought, because I wasn't here last week, I would just quickly give my thoughts on the Browns, and obviously,
I wanted to give my thoughts on the Browns as well, because in terms of the fact how they've gone from such like one of the worst offensive depth charts like last season to then now this season after this draft, they've got 2. Standout wide receivers that they took, but then, to add that to Jerry Jeudy as well. And do you still have
Cedric Tillman?
Yeah. Is Cedric Tillman still on the roster?
Yeah, I mean, we need to stop doing this, like, adding it to this wide receiver core of Cedric Tillman like he's done anything. I mean,
no, true. But
Harold Fanning is the biggest.
It couldn't have been much worse, like the offensive depth chart last season, and for them to done what they did, and then to get Emmanuel McNeil-Warren in the second round as well, like that, it was just great value. So like, I just think the Browns did a great job. I think they're definitely one of the winners. And Andrew Berry's shown that he's aggressive when it comes to draft time as well. In moving up and down the board as well. I mean, even gathering those picks that they did for trading down with the Jags to go up and get Travis Hunter last year as well. Those came in handy too. So I thought that the Browns did a great job.
Did you boys see that link I posted in Heard of the Line chat about some reporter was in the draft room and she was saying there's like 5 screens and it's all really like in depth. If you have a look back, it was really, really interesting. Actually, I thought it was a fantastic piece of journalism.
Which, by the way, I'm really annoyed that I can't remember her name. But go Google Browns draft for it. Go read that article, and I'm glad that you brought that up, Batch, because it's a really, really good article. Really credit to her, which was then completely, all of it was confirmed by that video that we got. We said it as you were crashing out earlier, Tom, that the pick is in kind of little mini doc we got from the NFL that showed us footage from inside these draft rooms, which, as I said, pretty much confirmed all of her reporting in that article. So
Jory Epstein.
That's unfortunate last name there, but yes, please go check her out. It was, as I said, absolutely fantastic reporting, and really, really good stuff. But yeah, as we can sit here all day and talk about how good of a draft that the Browns had, and yes, they got these good players, etc., and as well, everyone moaned about the wide receiver room. You pointed it to there, Tom. The wide receiver room was the worst in the NFL. The offensive line worse in the NFL. Fans all moaning about it. They go and draft 2 wide receivers in the top 40. I think that's the first time that's happened since 2019. 2 players that were, as I mentioned earlier, in the top 32 consensus board. They draft 3 offensive linemen, one being Spencer Fanu, your hopeful franchise left tackle at number 9. And obviously that's to go with obviously all the work that you did in free agency on the offensive line as well. So completely overhaul your offensive line, draft 2 guys that we wouldn't be shocked if they're wide receiver 1 and 2 this time next year when we're having this conversation. So great draft from the Browns. But we then get to, as I said, that was obviously all going on. The Browns then make their picks. The Cowboys then take Caleb Downs at 11, which is
Mm,
just, I mean, it's annoying because it's the Cowboys, but it's a great pick. I mean, to
great
get
pick.
Caleb Downs at
Great pick.
11 is arguably one of the best, safest picks, best value picks in the draft. Um, I'm just happy that it's not an AFC team, I suppose.
Mm.
But then we get some confusing picks, a couple of confusing picks, shall we say. Caden Proctor goes to the Dolphins, and they've already said they're going to play him at guard, I'm pretty sure. So, okay, why not just draft Vader Ione then if you want to draft a guard? That is a little
But
bit
then he wouldn't
confusing there.
be available for the Ravens, the team that he was just built to go to.
I was just about to get to that, Tom, but obviously you're not wrong there. But we might as well do that because I think that, the next conversation obviously be a little bit more. But every damn year, every damn year, good football players fall to the Baltimore Ravens. Every damn year, top three player at their position falls to the Ravens in the draft. They need interior offensive line help. Of course, arguably the best guard in the draft falls to them at 14. There's no surprises there, as you said, Tom. Just we all knew it was going to happen, so
Yep.
it was just so obvious. But just before that pick, the Rams,
Mm.
Ty Simpson, and I don't know how much you guys dived into this last week, but the whole kind of,
Oh yeah, we dived into it for sure.
and we
We
could,
had
and
Sam on with us as well.
of course, and Sam, I saw some of his messages in the group chat of trying to defend the pick of, we've now got our franchise quarterback for which, hold your horses there, Sam. He's not. Is he the franchise quarterback? That is something you will obviously be hoping for, but something we do not know yet. And it's the age-old argument of, you've got this old quarterback that's got a year or two left. You're picking in the draft. Do you pick someone to hopefully contribute to what you think can maybe be a Super Bowl run in these last couple of years with that quarterback? Or do you pick the heir apparent at quarterback position? And we can sit here all day and argue about who's going to contribute more in 2026, Ty Simpson or Mackay Lemon. We all know that Mackay Lemon is obviously the answer to that question. But if in 3 years' time, Ty Simpson's starting for the Rams and he's playing well, you know, that's obviously going to prove it to be a good pick, shall we say? But I'm only doing that if it's someone I'm a lot higher on than Ty Simpson, if I'm completely
So
honest.
the Rams apparently, I'm just reading this article that came out like a couple hours ago from The Athletic. It said the Rams reportedly they considered Makai Lemon and Kenyon Sadiq at 13, but found
I
it,
saw
but
that.
found it difficult to see either rookie providing an immediate impact given their current
Yeah,
depth.
that's just hilarious. That's just hilarious.
It
But
is hilarious. It is
your
hilarious.
your wide receiver one's probably going to get suspended one way or another.
Yeah.
I mean, is the tight end still Higby?
Yeah.
I
No,
mean,
But they've got
he's
Higby
48.
and is it Terrence Ferguson? Is he a tight end?
yes, yes. They've got a
Yeah.
stack room of tight ends anyway.
But I mean, it's 10 years today. You could play him at wide receiver. I mean, he's pretty
Yeah.
much just a big wide receiver, isn't he? But again, we can sit here and say that. Are they contributing more than Ty Simpson,
Yes.
who, if everything goes well next season, won't play a snap? I
Yeah.
think probably. I mean, if you drafted Monroe Freeland and played him at running back, he would have
Mm.
more impact next season than Ty Simpson because Ty Simpson's not going to play next season. So
Mm.
they could have drafted a traffic cone and played it at offensive line, and it technically would have had more impact than what Ty Simpson will have next season because he's not going to play next season if all things go well. And obviously, Stafford is healthy. But if he's not and Ty Simpson comes in and plays well, we can all sit here and Rams fans and Sam can laugh at us and say, look, it was a great pick. But I
Well, the
just think,
funniest thing about it, though, wasn't it, was
The
Sean McVay's reaction
confidence.
because it was
yeah,
just I couldn't stop watching how pissed off he was, and he's not he didn't hide his emotions very well either in the post presser when they were asking about the Ty Simpson pick. It seemed like for the first time anyway. I said this to Sam last week, but usually that kindred relationship between Les Snead and Sean McVay just been so strong. It seemed like the first time where like there was a bit of a fractured potential. This was a pick that maybe Les Snead wanted to make that Sean McVay wasn't as on board about, especially with his relationship with Matthew Stafford and what he's done for the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, only time will tell. But if you're there picking at 13 and you've got playmakers on the board that could
You're
hopefully,
trying to win a
help you.
Super Bowl. Like
Yeah,
Ty Simpson's not helping you win a Super Bowl next year.
I mean, and even if you want to do like the project, like take one of the tackles, like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like take Monroe Freeling there, or like Max Ineaccio. Like, I
Yeah,
don't
or
quite
maybe
understand.
take a right tackle because your right
Or a
tackle,
right,
Rob
or a right
Havenstein,
tackle.
literally retired in the off season. So
But yeah, I mean, as I said, for me, if I am doing the whole heir apparent stuff, I want it to be a slightly better prospect than Ty Simpson for me. But maybe
mm.
they clearly have a different opinion on that. Ruben
What a
Bainful.
situation for him though. What a situation
Oh
for
yeah, oh yeah.
Ty
Best,
Simpson's like absolutely
literally the
smiling from
best
ear
case
to ear.
scenario. Getting paid top 13 pick money next year, top 13 pick contract, and he don't even have to play next year, and
Yeah.
gets to get coached by Sean McVay. So shout out to Ty Simpson, literally the best case scenario that could have possibly been. I mean, people did say the best case scenario was going number 2 to the Jets, but we can all sit here and say that would not have been the best case scenario, regardless of
Mm.
the price difference between the second pick and the 13th pick. But as I was saying, Ruben Bain full then ends. The slide ends.
Mm.
He didn't quite get to where Chapman suggested could potentially happen as a hot take of him falling entirely out of the first round. The Bucks ended up doing it at 15. Were you surprised by that, guys, at all?
I
No,
was I, I wasn't because obviously I think the arm size or the hand size or yeah, what the arm size obviously there was teams that were put off by that. But then yeah, when he fell to 15, I just loved his whole, coming out. He just meant business, You could tell how annoyed he was that he dropped to 15. But good place for him to land as well, I think, in all fairness for the Bucks. Because they need an edge rusher.
they fell off a cliff last season, didn't
Yeah, well,
they?
I mean they've got interior pressure, they've got Vita Vea and and they've got Yaya Diaby as well. But they need an edge rusher. They need someone, in the season where they won the Super Bowl, they had Jason Pierre-Paul, they had Devin White who was rushing. They had Shaq Barrett as well. So, they had those guys who were able to affect the quarterback. So getting a guy like Ruben Bain who also great nickname Tampa Bane, just easy as you like. Um, but I thought it was good for the Bucks. I was surprised that he fell that far, but I understand why as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same as Tom. I wouldn't. It's a great landing spot for the Bucks to get him. They need him because they fell off a cliff. Let's be honest. What they start really good first 6 games.
Yeah, they were like 7-2 or 7-3, something like that, and they finished 8-9.
Wouldn't surprise me to see their coach on
Doesn't
the
matter, mate. No.
on the hot seat, 8 and 9.
Well, yeah, me and Ollie have been saying that this guy's on the hot seat for the longest time, and he just won't get fired. Yeah, Todd Bowles is somehow still in the job, even in the secondary, and the defense always just lets him down. And have regressed and got older. But yeah,
Well, they'll be hoping that Bain can somewhat change that with his
yes,
pass rush because arm length, whatever. This is still one of the better pass rushers in the draft. So this could potentially be one of the steals. If he is able to transition as well as obviously they would hope. The Jets took Tenyon Sadiq at 16. They took Omar Cooper as well at 30. Traded back up. The Jets had a pretty good draft. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
we say this every year. The Browns and the Jets had a pretty good draft, and it never really results to winning. So at one point, I think we have to maybe reevaluate our thought process on this. But I mean, don't get me wrong, David Paley's a good pick. I'm not saying it's a bad pick or anything, but I could say maybe I'd have taken Arbo Race. But to come out of the first 50 picks with David Bailey, Kenyon Sadiq, Omar Cooper, and literally one of my favorite players in the whole draft, D'Angelo Pons.
Mm.
That is a great haul for the Jets to come away with, and another team that I think deserves one of those shouts at one of the teams that had a pretty solid draft. Blake Miller to the Lions at 17. Literally,
Mm,
just one of the few just could have wrote this on a paper and penciled this in picks. I think this was
yeah.
so obvious that this was going to, unless one of the other, in my opinion, tier above tackles fell to 17. It was always going to be Blake Miller there at 17 for the Lions. So
Mm,
I think that was one of the most unsurprising picks of the whole draft, followed by arguably one of the more surprising picks of the first round, which was the Vikings going Caleb Banks. Which, don't get me
yeah,
wrong,
we're definitely surprised by that one, especially with Dylan Deaneman still on the board.
yeah, I mean, everyone and their nan thought they were going safety here. They had pick of every safety other than obviously Caleb Downs. Was it going to be Dylan Fireman? Was it going to be Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, who didn't go till 58? But obviously they ended up going Caleb Banks, who, don't get me wrong, good player, but for a team that has drafted as bad as the Vikings have the last few years, and when we say bad,
Mm,
we mean bad,
yeah.
to take a player that has injury concerns, has these concerns, has slight kind of boom bust concern, you could argue, just feels unwise. And
Yeah.
it just feels like, I mean, as I said, you look at the picks they've made in the last few years, you could argue have been pretty wasteful. And this is one of them where you think, if you could have made any pick here that's going to make me think that you're still doing that, this is probably one of those picks.
Mm.
See, if they have a season as bad as last season, do you see their superstar wanting out?
One out.
JJS.
I mean, he can, but he's signed a pretty big contract. Whether or not they
Massive
do it,
contract, so it's going to be
whether or not they
tough for
do
him
it,
to just get
yeah, whether or not
out.
they do it's a completely different conversation. Um, that was followed up by one of my favorite picks, of course, which was Monroe Freeling finally going off the
Mm.
board here, which I was very, very happy about because the Steelers were sat there at 21, and I just thought, oh no, I could very easily see the Steelers taking him there at 21 and him haunting me for the next decade. So one of my favourite tackles obviously goes off the board at 19. Maybe some people would argue, well, why are the Panthers taking him? But
Mm.
in the end of the day, it's a situation where he's not coming in as a top 10 pick. He's not having to start at left tackle for a terrible team week one. And he can kind of have a better, transition to the NFL, and I think that will be better for his
Especially with the
development.
injury of, is it Ikem Ekwonu,
Yeah,
who was playing really well for the Panthers before he got injured as well. So they needed that sort of depth as well.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then we had one of the funniest moments of the whole draft. I do apologize. I don't know how much you guys spoke about this last week, but literally one of the funniest moments of the whole draft, which was the Pittsburgh Steelers
Yes.
deciding and getting a little bit cocky and going, well, you know, we know that Dallas isn't taking Mackay Lemon here. We know that they're going defense. So we're going to give Mackay Lemon the call now and just let him know that once we're on the clock here in a couple of minutes, that we are going to be taking him. Mackay Lemon is sat there on the phone with the Steelers and goes, "Why is Philly ringing me?"
Yes.
Philly comes up to 20. They steal Mackay Lemon from the
From the
Steelers.
Steelers.
Chef's kiss. Could not have happened to a worse organization, a worse team. Just absolutely hilarious. Why you would ring the guy, but when you're not even on the clock is just funny anyway. For it to happen in Pittsburgh, the draft was in Pittsburgh,
Mm.
them to get sniped literally for everyone to see. What a moment. What a moment. Batch, did you
Always
enjoy
good.
it as much as me?
Oh, very much so. I love watching the Squealers not happen as good as they want. It's great.
It was a good moment.
Oh, I thought he was brilliant, to be fair. And it was another one of those moves as well for I mean, you could just see it in Omar, not Omar, yeah, Omar
Yeah,
Khan,
Mark.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Omar Khan's face just like thunder basically. And then on the other side, the Eagles,
Howie
continue. Yeah.
Roseman does it again.
Yeah, I mean this is Howie Roseman's season. Draft season is Howie Roseman's season. Always seems to get players of positional value in the draft, and then to get Mekhi Lemon at 20, and then to also trade for Jonathan Grenard. I predicted it, did I not, Ali, that he was going to get
Yeah.
traded, and he did. He got traded from the Vikings to the Eagles. So their pass rush gets richer as well. the Eagles again had a great draft, I think, especially some of the international guys. Even though obviously I know it's just potential, but when you're getting, I don't know if you saw Ollie, but Eward Bernard, he's
Yeah.
from Nigeria. His
Yeah,
comp
we
in
spoke about him
terms of
2 weeks ago.
style was Mars Garrett. So
And then
anyone
yeah,
getting compared to Mars Garrett is pretty insane.
his comp in terms of physical traits is Myles Garrett, and then
Yeah.
his comp in terms of actual ability to play football is me. Um, I mean, we all saw the clip of his first, which don't get me wrong, was
Yeah.
probably his first ever organized drill
Mm.
in that Philly practice, and yeah, it's going to take a few years at least. But obviously, we're happy for an international player to obviously get that chance.
We brought him up 2 weeks ago, didn't we? On our
Yeah. Yeah, they also took Markel Bell in, which is developmental tackle. So we all thought they were going to take a tackle. Did they do it in the first round? No, they ended up coming up for Mackay Lemon, but they did take their developmental tackle in Mackay Bell. And then speaking of tackles, the Steelers did have to backtrack, and they went with a guy that again I don't love this because this is a guy that I liked coming in and a guy that I think has the potential if developed right, to be one of the better offensive tackles in this draft, and that's Matt Iheanacho. And obviously
Mm.
him going to the Steelers. Don't love that, but hopefully he can develop for another team and not the Pittsburgh Steelers. But
another
that
one
was
we talked about 2 weeks ago.
yeah, and that was followed up by one of my least favorite picks of the whole draft, which is Akeem Mesidor. I just, I
Mm.
just, I just, I do too much into this stuff, but like a 25-year-old edge rusher going in the first round just doesn't seem right to me. And you can say about the production, I get it, but the guy is literally now he went in the first round, is going to be 30 before his 5 year. If they do exercise his 5th year option. Before that would end, he would be 30 years old, which for me is just a big no-no. But I suppose if they're thinking at 22, maybe the Chargers think they want someone that can win. Impact them winning right now. Maybe I understand it, but for me, I did not
They
love that
lost
pick at
Odafe
all.
away,
Yeah,
didn't they?
I think that's the thing. It's a guy that can come in now. He's very polished. He can come in and play straight away and make an impact on the defense, especially as Batch just said, Odafe away going away to the Commanders. Joey Bosa, I think he got cut as well. Khalil Mack's back on a 1 year deal. So they needed some help, but I do agree. I mean he's what is he 24 now? Was he
I
25?
think, I think he's
25.
25.
He is
25.
25.
I
Yeah.
think he's 25 now. When's his birthday?
Give me 2 seconds.
Let's have a look.
5th of April 2001.
All right, so yeah, he just turned 25.
He just turned 25.
Because I
Yeah.
was going to say, if his birthday was like December and this guy turns 26 during the season,
Yeah.
then that's
That
even
would be
worse.
insane.
But
That would be
20,
like some Brandon Weeden level of
yeah, but
getting
yeah,
drafted.
I mean, I get it. Maybe I played too much into it, but for me, I just would never draft a 25-year-old in the first round. And maybe I'm too scarred from, as you just said, my team drafting a 28-year-old in the first round. Um, Dylan Fineman to the Bears. That's
Makes
a pretty
sense.
good value pick in
Yeah.
terms of where he was in the consensus. I was a little bit worried that would then kick off the little safety run. I
Mm.
assumed that whenever Dylan Fineman goes, Emmanuel McNeil Warren was going to go within the next 5 picks. So I was sat there going, okay, well, that's probably chance of him making it to the second round gone. Nope, thankfully that didn't happen. So I was obviously happy about that. Chris Johnson, Dolphins coming up to get him. I think that's a really good pick.
Really good pick.
Them coming
Yeah.
up to get Chris Johnson. I was actually thought he might have got a little bit earlier than that. Caleb Lomu to the Patriots. This basically fulfills one of my agendas that I've had for over a year now. That is Will Campbell is a guard. Everyone
Mm.
argued with me. A former host on this podcast who is no longer with us sat here and argued with me that no, this guy was a tackle, one of the best tackles, in fact. I said, no, he is a guard. And what happens? He gets absolutely steamrolled in the Super Bowl and they go draft a left tackle. So I'm assuming they're going to move Will Campbell to the inside where he belongs. Very, very good guard. Don't get me wrong. I think he will be. But as I said, my my agenda finally looks like it is being confirmed. Tom, you guys get Peter Woods at 29. In terms of terms of talent, this is arguably a top 15 player. Obviously
I mean,
falls to
if he'd
29.
come out last year, he was like he was, I think, ranked as the best defensive tackle
Yeah.
going into this season. Obviously, this season he didn't play as well, so he dropped down the board a little bit. But I was really happy for the Chiefs to get him, someone to learn behind Chris Jones, someone who's got that explosiveness. I mean, even in the press conference, when Andy Reid was talking about it, he's got Aaron Donald-esque qualities. Obviously, he's not, that's a very big comp to go Aaron Donald, but if he can have that explosiveness, that's something that the Chiefs need anyway. So I was really happy with the pick.
And then to round off the first round, Seattle with arguably one of the most shocking picks of the entire draft,
Jadarian
going for
Price.
Jadarian Price, who, if anyone isn't aware, is Jeremiah Love's backup. Who Jeremiah Love going at three is for me. Jadarian Price here at 30. It almost feels like they were like just clearly thought they were going to get like someone was going to trade up, and then
Mm,
no one wanted to trade up, and they were like, "Shit, what do we do? Let's just take the running back." Like it was, I have no idea what on earth this pick was. When it came through, I was like, obviously everyone can make it make sense. They obviously lost Kenneth Walker, the Super Bowl MVP in the off season. So I get it. They need a running back, but to do
mm,
this in the first round at 32 is just quite bizarre to me. Um, and yeah, it was a pretty arguably one of the most shocking picks of the whole draft. Just to quickly round up a few more, shall I say, surprising picks that we had. Obviously, DeZorn Stribling
mm.
going 33 to the 49ers, them kind of kicking off the whole we don't care about the consensus board stuff. That was a surprising one.
Yeah,
Colton Hood obviously falling to Colton Hood, Jared McCoy. Well, Colton Hood falling, I suppose you could argue as well, but Jared McCoy falling to the fourth round to the Raiders. His knee must literally be pork,
yeah,
must be pulled pork because that. I mean, this is a player that we were saying, Tom, if this guy was healthy, he might go ahead of Mansour Delane,
yeah.
and he fell to the fourth round
Mm,
and the Chiefs traded up to six to get Mansour delayed. So this was generally one of the more shocking kind of falls that we've had in recent memory. And obviously, when you get these falls, everyone's going to go, well, that's it. Raiders win the draft because they got the biggest steal of the draft. But, yes, that might be the case. But I do think it asks the question of, how bad actually is that knee? Um, Avion Terrell falling to the Falcons at 48. I'm sure Chapman was very happy about that. That was another slightly surprising one, shall we say. And then the Jaguars taking Nate Boerkircher at their first pick in the draft at 56, which was like, 100 above the consensus board, was absolutely hilarious, which leads me to the last thing I want to bring up tonight, guys, which is this whole kind of consensus board debate that we has become a lot more prominent in the last few years, the last few drafts.
mm.
We heard Eric DeCosta, Ravens GM, speak about it after the draft, and talk about how they kind of follow it, etc., and how he believes that more teams are doing it. Don't get me wrong, teams still have obviously some different opinions, as we see. Like I just said, with the Jaguars taking someone like 100 and something picks above what the consensus board was.
Yeah, yeah.
But I suppose like how much stock do you guys put into the consensus board, and how much stock do you think teams put into the consensus board?
I think
Uh,
I put quite a lot of stock into the consensus board, to be fair, because I think the people that research um and watch the film and rank the players, people like Daniel Jeremiah, um among others anyway. I think they got a good idea. So I think, when players get picked outside of the consensus thing, it goes one or two ways. And most times it does go the way of that it's, an interesting pick that, is a bit of a reach, which we definitely thought that Nate Borucher was. But then I think the teams, they just go by their own ball. Like I know they understand and see what other teams are doing as well, and with the projections of what they think is going to happen before. But I think different teams have completely different boards as well. But like, it's still, they have their top prospects, but then I think the boards differ quite a lot across the league, probably.
Yeah, certain scouts see different things from different players, whether it be game footage or workouts. I completely agree with you, Tom. But at the same time, articles have proved it. Like, for instance, me and Ollie, we were saying about Jory Epstein's thing. They had 5 screens across the front saying, we believe this person will take this, will go to this team will take this person, which will leave, however many of this position. But at the same time, you can't always go off a consensus board. Let's be fair. Recently, Puka Nakua, it was what, a 4th round pick or something for LA Rams? And he was
Fifth
fantastic.
round pick.
5th round pick. There we go.
Out of BYU.
And he was absolutely fantastic for them last year. Yeah, okay, off the field, he might have a few snags. But at the same time, he was fantastic. And then you had the player the Falcons traded up for, who off the field has got all these issues.
James Pierce Jr.
James Pierce Jr. He's got all the off-field issues, which who could have foresaw that? Do you know what I mean? The big board is very.
I mean, there was a lot of
stuff about him.
Don't get me wrong, maybe not quite to the extent of what he did.
Yeah.
But
there was definitely character concerns going into when he was picked anyway. But those were speculated.
And I mean, you're always going to have outliers. That's been a case before. Consensus boards mattered, and now that consensus boards do matter, I think the consensus board definitely plays a much bigger role when we're talking about the first 20 picks, when we're talking about the first round. The consensus board will usually match what teams are doing in when within those first 30, 40 picks, obviously a lot more than it will in picks 200 to 260. That's just a nature of, obviously, it's you're doing a lot more work on better players. But as I said, I do think it's becoming more and more prevalent. I do think it's becoming more prominent in teams' draft strategy. And as you kind of said, Batch, the Browns, obviously, with the models that they have, what's data's being put into that model, it's consensus boards, it's mock drafts. People think that it's just the fans that do mock drafts. Every team in the NFL, their front office, all of them are doing mock drafts leading up to the draft. They're running out different scenarios, different things that they think are going to happen based on consensus and stuff like that. So, I know it can almost become a nauseating topic that around draft time, the whole kind of consensus board stuff, because if you're a team like me and Batch and your team drafts 4 players in the top 32 consensus board, you're going to be more prone to sit here saying, well, yes, the consensus board does matter and you should pay attention to it. Whereas if you're a Jags fan, you're sitting here saying, well, no, I don't think the consensus board should matter, because you're trying to make yourself feel better about your team picking way below the consensus with every single pick, or a fan of a team like the 49ers, etc. But so every team still does have different strategies, as proven with teams like the 49ers and the Jaguars. But I do think, as Eric DeCosta said, like, we are seeing a more bigger move towards teams drafting more. I mean, as Eric DeCosta said himself, it's a little bit arrogant for him to say, but I don't think he's wrong that he's seeing more teams draft like the Ravens. And what he means by that is that it doesn't actually mean more teams are using our specific philosophy, but more teams are making picks that make sense on our board and picks that make sense to us, because they're obviously using the same data, they're obviously using the same models. And where does a lot of that stuff come from? As I said, that's a lot of that comes from the consensus board. So it's something that's it's not going to go away. It's only going to keep getting more prevalent in the draft every year as these guys get better at doing the scouting and
more
the
data
mock drafts
becomes available.
Exactly, and all of that stuff. So, and obviously Daniel Jeremiah being one of the kind of spearheads of that, as you mentioned there, Tom. But that doesn't mean that if you draw, that doesn't mean that if you're a Jaguars fan that your picks were terrible. We don't know that until they play. That doesn't mean that as a Browns fan I can sit here and say that the Browns just drafted 4 Hall of Famers because they were in the top 32 consensus. That's just obviously what
Well,
we're talking now.
Look at number 33 from last year, D-Roy.
Well, yeah, and they'll be hoping for the same from pick 58 this year in Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. But any more thoughts, key takeaways on the draft? We will obviously do next week a bit more draft, I believe, and talk about some more stuff.
I think we're going to do the rankings next week.
Yeah, look at where teams are at,
kind of the power rankings post draft. But yeah, I wanted to. I mean, I did this last week as well, but why not get a chance to talk about my team? I like what the Chiefs did with the draft. Obviously, Mansour Delane going up at 6 to get him. I think he's going to fit like a glove into Steve Spagnuolo's defense. Press man, corner, can play in sticky coverage. Basically, just perfect, prototypical for the Chiefs defense. I just like him. I like his personality from what he said so far. Peter Woods, as you said. I also really like the pick of Jaden Kennedy as well, from Oregon. He kind of models his game after Trent McDuffie, I found out as well, listening to an interview this week. And then also getting Emmett Johnson as well, the running back out of Nebraska, I want to say. I think he's from Nebraska. Either way, he led the Big Ten in rushing yards last year. I was really happy with that because he's kind of a receiving back as well. So it adds another skill set to the Chiefs, as well as Cyrus Allen as well.
It was Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Yeah, Nebraska Cornhuskers.
So the age-old question, Tom, your team made. I mean, actually, to be fair, you didn't actually make that many picks, so this is probably a little bit easier to answer. But your team made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 picks.
Yeah, including Garrett Nussmeier.
Including Garrett Nussmeier. What are the chances of all 7 of those players making the Browns the Chiefs' initial 53-man roster?
Of those 7, I want to say 5 of them made the roster.
And which ones do you think are the least likely then? Which 2 do you think don't make it?
That's a good question. Who? I'm trying to think who their late round picks were.
Hold on, I'll get it up now.
So I know R. Mason Thomas is definitely going to make the roster. I think Emmett Johnson is going to make the roster. I think Jaden Kennedy is going to make the roster. I think Mansour Delane is going to make the roster.
Peter Woods makes the roster.
Peter Woods makes the roster for sure.
Do you think Cyrus Allen and Nussmeier don't make the roster?
I would be surprised if they make the roster. I'll say that Cyrus Allen is outside looking in. I can see Garrett Nussmeier being the backup to Mahomes, but at the same time, it was a 7th round pick.
You signed Justin Fields.
Yeah, but that shows that the insurance for Justin Fields.
Well, actually, that could be Nussmeier's only chance of making the roster is Mahomes not being ready and him being the backup.
And he's apparently slated to be ready for OTAs somehow. So
which is just I'd really hope they're making the right decision there.
Maybe don't bring him out at OTAs.
That just seems wild to me.
Hold him back, please. But
yeah. But don't get me wrong, if he's ready to go, he's ready to go. But as I said, if he's not ready to go, maybe Nussmeier makes the cut. But I mean don't get me wrong, the Browns are in a situation where we made what batch? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 picks. And don't get me wrong, this is mainly because the roster sucks. I wouldn't be shocked if all 10 players made the roster. I mean, Spencer Fanu is 100% lock. KC Conception 100% lock. Denzel Boston 100% lock. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren 100% lock. Austin Barber, I think, is pretty much an 100% lock. I think the way that they've spoken about Parker Brailsford, I think he's probably a lock. The way that they've spoken about him. Justin Jefferson, immediate special teams impact, and I think he will actually play snaps on defense in that linebacker role. I think he makes the team. Joe Royer and Carson Ryan. I mean, we currently have Harold Fanning and Jack Stoll, so easily could see those two making the roster.
And we
And then
got that
Taylor
white
Green. I mean, Taylor Green, I'll be annoyed if he doesn't make the roster because he's the only quarterback in that room that if he doesn't make is not starting, can still contribute in terms of, there's going to be packages for him in the Wildcat, in the goal line, using Taylor Green. So, maybe the Browns follow up last year, all their players, all their rookies making the roster with again this year. But that is this week's episode, guys. That is this week's thoughts on the NFL draft. As we said, next week we're going to look a little bit more ahead, look at where the teams stack up now, obviously after the draft, and obviously power rankings, all of that good stuff. Before we go, as I said at the start, please check the description of the video to see where you can follow my amazing co-hosts, see where you can follow the network and all the other great podcasts that the AAW network does. We're Hurdle the Line, but they also do college, they do fantasy, they do unsportsmanlike. So yeah. Where I still think they just sit there and swear at each other. I think that's the premise of it, which it sounds like my cup of tea. So definitely go and check that out, guys. But obviously we are Hurdle the Line. So before you do any of that, please go and follow Hurdle the Line, and obviously check out where you can follow my amazing co-hosts as well. What are we hurdling this week, boys, before we go?
Hurdle
Do we know?
Deep dive.
That doesn't roll off the tongue. Hurdle that the Browns had an amazing draft. Thanks for watching, guys, and have an amazing rest of the week.